It's the middle of the night, after a long Seder, so I'm going to ask you to keep your answers concise and to the point. What is the substance and purpose of your teaching?
I've spoken openly to the world. And I've always taught in synagogues and the temple where the religious leaders gather.
That's not an answer.
I've said nothing in secret. If you wanted this information, you've had many opportunities to obtain it from witnesses.
I want to hear it from you.
It's a matter of public record.
Do you know who you're talking to?
How many people have you told your lies to?
I haven't lied. So, none.
Could your teachings be interpreted as calls to violence?
Ask those who have heard me what I said to them. They know.
If we ban you from ever teaching publicly again, will you comply?
I've also answered that previously as well.
Is that how you answer the Kohen Hagadol?
Season 6 wastes absolutely no time pulling us into its emotional grip. The new scenes revealed so far already give us an unsettling feeling that something sacred, something unbearably tragic, and something world-changing is about to unfold. Dallas Jenkins has hinted many times that this season is the most spiritually demanding one they've ever filmed, and you can feel that weight dripping from every frame we've seen. The tone is darker, the stakes are higher, and the tension is unbearably thick, because we are witnessing the build-up to the moments that will define everything. The first look shows Jesus carrying a deeper sorrow in his eyes, the kind of burden that makes you stop breathing for a second. It's this quiet sadness mixed with unwavering resolve, like he knows exactly what awaits him, and there's no path left except forward. And the disciples, you can already sense the confusion, fear, and desperation starting to creep into their hearts. There's this raw energy in the new scenes. Peter watching Jesus with an expression that's somewhere between loyalty and panic, John looking like he's trying to memorize every second, Matthew already sensing that something is about to shatter. The emotional atmosphere around them isn't loud, but it's heavy, like a storm building on the horizon. You don't see thunder yet, but you hear it in the distance, and you know it's coming for all of them. What makes these scenes even more powerful is how intentional everything feels. Every line Jesus speaks, every look shared between the apostles, every silent moment seems loaded with meaning. It's almost like watching people walk toward a doorway they don't fully understand, but we, as the audience, know exactly what awaits them on the other side. And that knowledge hurts. The new footage suggests that the season is going to dive deeper into their emotions than ever before. We see them wrestling with doubt, hope, fear, and love all at the same time. And even though nothing explosive happens in this first look, the suspense is unbearable, because it's the calm before the storm. The kind of calm that makes you sit still and brace yourself. The kind of calm that tells you everything is about to change forever. The tension is so thick that even the quiet moments feel loud, and that's exactly what makes this first look so gripping. It doesn't overwhelm us with chaos. Instead, it quietly tightens the emotional rope around our hearts, making it impossible to look away. Because deep down, you already know that Season 6 is going to be the season that breaks you, reshapes you, and stays with you long after it ends. The first look at the new scenes doesn't just hint at the emotional intensity. There's also a noticeable shift in the atmosphere surrounding Jesus and the disciples, almost as if the world around them is tightening its grip. These scenes carry a sense of urgency we haven't felt in earlier seasons. You can tell that Season 6 isn't building tension slowly anymore. It's already pressing down from the very beginning. One of the most striking things about the new footage is how different Jesus feels in these moments. Not because he's changed, but because the weight on his shoulders has grown heavier. The calm confidence we've always seen in him is still there, but now it's layered with something deeper, something quieter, like a man preparing for a path that only he can walk. The new clips show him surrounded by the apostles, yet he feels alone in a way that's hard to explain. It's the kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being abandoned, but from knowing a responsibility no one else can carry. That alone adds so much suspense to the entire tone of the season. Meanwhile, the apostles are visibly struggling in these scenes. You can see the anticipation and fear mixed in their expressions, like they're sensing that Jesus is leading them towards something they're not ready to face. Peter, especially, has this intensity in his eyes. almost like he's determined to fight anything that threatens Jesus, but at the same time terrified of what he can't control. The tension around them isn't chaotic yet, but it feels like pressure building inside a sealed container. One wrong move, and everything could explode. And that's exactly what makes these new moments so gripping. What really stands out is that the season seems to be focusing heavily on the emotional journey of each disciple. They're not just followers anymore, they're men caught between faith and fear, between protecting the one they love and accepting a destiny they don't yet understand. Even in the small details we've seen, you can feel the confusion starting to rise among them. They're holding on to Jesus' words, but the reality of danger is starting to close in. The new scenes reveal their vulnerability like never before. Another thing that adds to the suspense is the tone of their conversations. Every word feels heavier, as if they're talking around something they're scared to acknowledge. Jesus' teachings in these scenes don't feel like lessons. They feel like final preparations. He speaks with a softness that feels almost like goodbye, even though he never says it. And that subtle shift in his tone is enough to break your heart. Because he knows. He knows what's coming, and he's trying to strengthen them without overwhelming them. That emotional contrast creates a chilling quietness in the first look scenes. It's not dramatic or loud, but it's powerful enough to make you stop and think about what's ahead. The new footage also gives us glimpses of the rising danger around them. Authorities moving with more intention, crowds watching with sharper suspicion, religious leaders whispering with more hostility. The world around Jesus is changing fast, and the new scenes make that crystal clear. You can feel that the betrayal, the arrest, the trial, all of it is already casting its shadow over every moment. And that shadow makes every smile, every word, every breath feel fragile. That's what makes this season feel different. Season 6 doesn't just show events, it makes you feel the countdown. It makes you feel the closing walls and the weight of destiny approaching. And even with just these early scenes, it's obvious that we're stepping into the darkest, most powerful chapter of The Chosen yet. One of the most gripping things about the new scenes in Season 6 is how the tension around Jesus begins to feel unavoidable. Almost like destiny itself is tightening its hold on every step he takes. The latest footage shows this haunting shift in the atmosphere, not through chaos, but through silence. A silence that feels heavy, expectant, and painfully fragile. It's the kind of silence where you can sense something breaking beneath the surface, even if no one acknowledges it out loud. Jesus walks with a calmness that feels almost impossible considering the danger closing in on him, and that calmness alone sends chills through you. It's not the peaceful calm we've seen in earlier seasons. It's a calm born from surrender, from knowing the path he's about to walk is unavoidable, and the apostles can feel it too, even if they don't fully understand it. They watch him the way people watch the sunset before a long night, trying to hold on to the light for as long as possible. These new scenes capture that emotional distance so beautifully. Jesus isn't stepping back from them emotionally, but there's something in his expression that feels like he's already bearing the weight of what they will soon witness. That alone creates an unbelievable level of suspense. You can feel the upcoming storm in their conversations. The apostles keep asking questions that hint at their rising fear. Small questions, unsure questions, questions layered with doubt they're too afraid to admit. And every time Jesus answers, his words feel more like warnings wrapped in love. He doesn't scare them, he prepares them. And that mixture of tenderness and sorrow makes these scenes feel so real and so heartbreaking. There's a moment in the footage where you can almost see the emotional separation forming, not because of division, but because Jesus is moving towards something only he can face. The disciples are trying to stand close, trying to hold on to the mission they've always believed in, but the gravity of what's coming is beginning to shake them. Peter's frustration shows in his stance. John tries to be strong quietly. Matthew looks like he's analyzing everything but finding no answers. And even the more confident disciples seem unsettled, unsure how to protect the man they've seen heal, teach, and love so deeply. You can feel the fear settling into them, not because they doubt Jesus, but because they know something is approaching that they can't fight with their own strength. That emotional conflict creates this breathtaking sense of vulnerability. The first look scenes also show how the world outside the disciples is shifting. People watching Jesus with suspicion, leaders whispering with urgency, soldiers standing with sharper eyes. Nothing explosive happens in these moments, but the danger is everywhere. It feels like the city itself is holding its breath. And that makes every step Jesus takes feel like part of a countdown. A countdown to betrayal, a countdown to his arrest, a countdown to the moment everything they know will collapse. What makes this so powerful is that Season 6 doesn't rely on dramatic action to build suspense. It uses emotion. It uses silence. It uses the expressions on the faces of people who are about to have their lives split in two. In every new scene, you sense that they're walking toward something final, something irreversible. And even though we all know what's coming, the way Season 6 frames these early moments makes the story feel heartbreakingly new. It's not just that Jesus is preparing for the cross, it's that the disciples are slowly realizing they can't stop it. And that realization, quiet, painful, and utterly human, is what gives Section 3 of the story its chilling intensity. This isn't just a first look. It's a warning. A quiet, emotional warning that the hour they've feared is finally approaching, and nothing will ever be the same again. What makes the newly revealed scenes of Season 6 even more intense is the slow unraveling of trust, fear, and destiny happening right before our eyes. These moments show the disciples caught in a rising storm they can't escape, and the tension surrounding them begins to feel almost suffocating. The more we see, the more obvious it becomes that every relationship, every bond, and every moment of unity they've shared is being tested. Not because their faith is weak, but because the weight of what's coming is too heavy for any human heart to carry without trembling. In these first looks, you can almost feel the emotional cracks forming. Not breaking, just forming, like tiny fractures under the pressure of something too big for them to understand. And those fractures make the story feel painfully real. As Jesus becomes quieter and more resolved, the disciples become louder in their confusion. Their conversations feel tense, their glances at one another filled with questions they can't put into words. They're trying to make sense of the shifts happening around them, but the more they try to understand, the more lost they seem to become. What's heartbreaking is that they don't realize they're witnessing Jesus preparing himself for the final stretch of his earthly mission. They just feel the distance growing, and they don't know what it means. The new scenes show Jesus watching them with this heartbreaking combination of love and sorrow, as if he's carrying the pain of knowing how terrified they will soon become. That expression alone is enough to make your stomach twist. There's this quietness in him that feels almost unbearable to look at. A quietness that says he's ready, even if no one else is. Meanwhile, the world around them seems to be tightening its grip every single second. Leaders lurking in the shadows, exchanging glances full of calculation and resentment. Crowds moving with an edgy curiosity, as if they're sensing something significant is happening beneath the surface. Soldiers positioned with more purpose, more focus, as if waiting for a signal they already know is coming. Everything feels like it's converging toward one unavoidable moment. And that creeping sense of danger infiltrates every new frame. In these scenes, the disciples try desperately to hold on to normalcy, continuing small tasks, offering reassurances to one another, clinging to routines that once brought them comfort, but the atmosphere refuses to let them breathe. Even the simplest moments feel like they're overshadowed by what's about to unfold. You can sense the fear creeping in slowly, wrapping itself around them like a cold wind. They can't see the full picture yet, but they can feel it, and that feeling is enough to shake them. One of the most powerful elements in the new footage is the emotional contrast between the disciples and Jesus. They're confused, anxious, restless. Jesus is calm, steady, unshakable. That difference creates a tension so strong it almost hurts to watch. It's like watching two timelines collide, the human timeline full of uncertainty, and the divine timeline moving with intentional purpose. The disciples cling to the belief that everything will continue as it always has, but Jesus knows that the road ahead leads to sacrifice. And that contrast creates the emotional spine of Season 6. You can also sense a shift in how the disciples look at one another. There's a growing uneasiness in their interactions, a subtle worry that something is about to tear them apart. They're trying to stay united, but fear has a way of testing unity. And even though they don't know the full weight of what's coming, the shadows hanging over their conversations reveal everything they're too afraid to say aloud. The first look scenes emphasize that this season isn't just about the events leading to the crucifixion. It's about the emotional unraveling that happens before the world changes forever. It's about the fear of losing their teacher, the confusion of watching him walk into danger, and the desperate hope that maybe things won't unfold the way prophecy says they will. But deep down, they sense the truth. And that truth creates a heavy, chilling suspense that lingers in every second of the new footage. Season 6 isn't just preparing us for the darkest moment in the story. It's letting us feel the weight of the final steps leading toward it. And with each new scene revealed, it becomes impossible to ignore the reality that everything we've watched them fight for, learn, and believe is about to be put to the ultimate test. The newest scenes from Season 6 make it painfully clear that we're stepping into the moment where faith, fear, and destiny collide in a way the series has never shown before. What stands out most is how the emotional atmosphere shifts from tension to inevitability. You can feel the story tightening its focus, pulling every character toward the point of no return. These fresh glimpses show that the disciples are inching closer to the moment where everything they know will crumble, and yet they're still trying to hold on to hope with shaking hands. There's a heartbreaking innocence in the way they cling to Jesus' words, searching them for reassurance, even though the reality looming over them refuses to be ignored any longer. Each new scene feels like another piece of a puzzle falling into place, revealing a picture that is both devastating and divinely purposeful. Jesus' quietness grows heavier in this stretch of the story. It's not the calm of peace, but the calm of someone who knows the cost of what's coming and accepts it fully. The weight in his eyes mirrors the weight in his steps, steady, unbroken, and filled with a kind of sorrow that only deepens the more you watch. What makes these scenes so haunting is that Jesus isn't afraid. He's burdened, but not shaken. And that strength makes the disciples' fear even more striking. They're watching their teacher, their friend, the man who changed their lives forever, walk toward danger with a courage that both inspires them and terrifies them. Their hearts are torn between following him and wanting to pull him away from the path he insists on taking. In the new footage, you can see their fear turning into desperation. They're whispering among themselves, exchanging panicked looks, trying to understand why Jesus isn't fighting back against the threats closing in on him. They sense the betrayal approaching, the arrest, the trial. They can feel it in the air like a storm about to break. And that fear transforms their unity into something fragile, almost trembling. They want to stand firm, but the unknown has a way of shaking even the strongest believers. The scenes also show the growing intensity of the forces moving against Jesus. Leaders plotting with sharper conviction, crowds murmuring with unease, soldiers watching with cold detachment. It feels like all of Jerusalem is slowly turning its gaze toward him, and that gaze is not friendly. The tension swirling around him is so thick you can practically feel it pressing against the screen. Every moment carries the sense that the walls are closing in, that the time for peace has ended, and the time for sacrifice has begun. And yet, even in the middle of that building storm, Jesus remains astonishingly composed. He walks with the kind of strength that comes from knowing the ending, from understanding the purpose behind the pain, from loving humanity enough to face the unimaginable without hesitation. That unshakable resolve is what makes these new scenes hit so hard. It's the contrast between divine purpose and human fear, between a savior who knows the cost and disciples who are about to witness it firsthand. These glimpses also hint at the emotional breaking points coming for each disciple.